Welcome back to the news. Police in northern Paris on Tuesday evacuated a tent camp where some 1,000 migrants, mostly from Afghanistan and Sudan, were living. Hundreds of police moved in at dawn to remove migrants camped between major access roads into the capital. The settlement at Porte de la Chapelle area of the city was located just meters from a new refugee transit center set up by Paris city authorities late last year to take asylum seekers off the streets. The center has limited space available, and authorities say illegal camps present major risks for security and health of their occupants as well as the local residents. Last month, a huge fire gutted one of France's biggest migrant camps, housing 1,500 people near the northern French port of Dunkirk.
C'est la deuxième fois qu'on fait une opération ici avec des petits campements qui sont.
This is the second time an operation has been carried out here with small camps that were rebuilt. We had to wait because there were the elections and there were no police forces available during the vote because they were needed to secure the polls. Furthermore, it took a little time to get a sufficient number of places, so that's why it's only being done today.
Dans ce que je vais laisser à mon successeur.
When I leave this to my successor, I will stress the fact that we must extend this policy of housing migrants in reception centers and even organize it more. In any case, I hope that this will be pursued in an intelligent manner. Whatever the policy of the government on this issue, I have no prejudice because the issue is there and it needs to be dealt with.
Now, a new haul of ancient human remains have been recovered from an important cave site in South Africa. The finds, which include a well-preserved skull, bolster the idea that the Homo naledi people deliberately deposited their dead in the cave. The evidence of such complex behavior is surprising for a human species with a brain that's a third the size of ours. Despite showing some primitive traits, it lived relatively recently, perhaps as little as 235,000 years ago. That would mean that the Naledi people could have overlapped with the earliest of our kind, Homo sapiens. The latest specimens include the remains of at least 3 individuals, 2 adults and a child.
We have discovered a second chamber within the Rising Star cave system that contains more Homo naledi, the same species we announced in 2015. Included amongst those individuals is one of the most complete skeletons ever discovered, with a beautifully preserved skull that we've called Neo. This adds a lot of evidence, I think, to the idea that Homo naledi was using the Rising Star cave in a very special way, potentially adding weight to the idea that Homo naledi was deliberately disposing of its dead. We're announcing the age of the fossils from the Dinaledi chamber, the fossils we announced in 2015, and they are amazingly young. The anatomy of Homo naledi said it should be millions of years old, perhaps as old as 2.5 million years or more, yet these individuals died only 230 to 330,000 years ago.
Homo naledi was the size of a small-bodied human, very small hunter-gatherer people today, Homo naledi-sized. It had a brain about a third the size of human brains, though. It had feet and legs very much like ours, but they were slender. So they're skinny, a little bit shorter than the average human, and with a very small brain. But they have hands with curved fingers that are seemingly well suited for climbing, but at the same time with wrists that look very much like human wrists, so apparently adapted to making stone tools.
Cameroon's Kalkaba Malboon has been suspended from taking part in the Association of National Olympic Committees of Africa's General Assembly, which started on Tuesday in Djibouti. He was set to stand in a 2-horse race for the presidency against the Ivorian incumbent Lassana Palenfo. The decision to suspend him was made by the current executive committee on Sunday. Mr. Malboon has been accused of illegally using the government in Cameroon to campaign on his behalf, as well as campaigning himself in Benin. He denies any wrongdoing, stating that he may take the case to the International Olympic Committee's Ethics Commission. Now in Cameroon, professional football player Samuel Eto'o has donated a pediatric centre to a hospital in Douala. It's been dubbed Pavilion Samuel Eto'o and was funded by his foundation. Let's find out more in this special report.
More than 10 years in the making, the pediatric center at the Lakantini Hospital in Douala has finally gone operational. The blue and white painted building was officially handed over to the state of Cameroon on Monday by its donor Samuel Eto'o at a ceremony chaired by the Minister of Public Health. The Cameroonian international football player called the achievement a childhood dream turned reality.
Le pavillon que je remets à ce jour
The center that I am giving today to the authorities, funded by Samuel Eto'o Private Foundation, belongs to all Cameroonians. It is yours. This pediatric center is my childhood dream become reality.
The project, which is estimated to have cost more than $1.2 million in both construction and equipment, is committed to reducing the mortality rate of children and encouraging the effective management of emergency situations.
Speaking of care, this center will allow us to improve the care of newborns in the pediatric sector in general. It will allow us to improve the living condition of our children. You noticed that before. We complained that the pediatric health situation was not really what we had hoped for. But with this center and the equipment that Samuel Eto'o have given to the Lakantini Hospital, we are going to improve the living condition of our children.
The center comes as a great help to the pediatric services at the Lakantini Hospital in Douala, where nearly 15,000 infant consultations are registered annually. The general manager of Lakantini Hospital in his speech said the institution currently has 2 pediatricians with over 140 beds. He urges the former Lions captain for more resources to hire additional pediatricians. But even as it is, the center is already a source of joy to many.
You are able to see the equipment that was delivered. It is really very good quality. We are talking about the latest technology. So I think people who are ill will really benefit. We must really thank Samuel for this.
You see all this? Eto'o really thought about Cameroon. He's not an individualist. He understood that Cameroon needed a center like this to save children, to save humanity.
Now, just before we go, let's have a reminder of tonight's top stories. Violent clashes in South Africa as 2 farmers accused of murder are released on bail. The International Criminal Court could start an official inquiry into alleged crimes committed against migrants crossing Libya. And at least 6 people have been killed following a car bomb attack in Somalia. Well, that's all from the Vox News Evening team. We'll be back at the same time tomorrow. See you then. Goodbye.